So the baseline is we've had this rhetorical escalation between Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un and their respective associates. Trump's threats of fire and fury like we've never seen before. And I want to put sort of the megalomania aside for a moment and consider what it is that Kim Jong-un and others in North Korean leadership actually want, right? If they had a say as to what they are trying to get out of this situation or of these escalated threats that they involve themselves in, what is it that they want? It's often sort of presumed whenever North Korea really needs aid, they start missile testing and they make some threats, and then they agree to calm down those threats in exchange for aid. And this to me is way more complex than that. Does Kim Jong-un really want to fight a war? Does he think he could win? Is he trying to get North Korea more recognition on the national stage? Is it more about his anger at the U.S. trying to intervene in its nuclear research? And realistically, it's some combination of all of these factors and more, right? I mean, there's every indication that Kim Jong-un does want to be taken seriously on the world stage. There's every indication that he would imagine, hey, if he has nuclear weapons in a form where they pose a real threat to the U.S. and its allies, then the U.S. and its allies won't be able to ignore North Korea any longer in terms of taking it seriously on the national stage. And the reality is the history of American foreign policy probably also makes Kim Jong-un want more sophisticated nuclear weapons. We've shown in the United States through our foreign policy that we will topple dictators we don't like if the circumstances are right. Look at Gaddafi in Libya, who agreed not to pursue nuclear weapons research, and we still took him out. So if you're Kim Jong-un and you're at all rational, and we don't know if he is, you're probably thinking, I'd better get these weapons so that they don't take me out. Maybe having the nuclear weapons not to use, but as a deterrent would make it so that the U.S. might leave me alone. And consider that the U.S., by and large, accepts the human rights abuses of China. I mean, diplomatically, we issue complaints. China has nukes, and by and large, there's no chance that we're considering any type of intervention to stop China's massive human rights abuses. Not to mention, we also depend on cheap Chinese labor and products to maintain our American way of life. On the other hand, look at Ukraine. Ukraine legitimately had nuclear weapons after the fall of the Soviet Union. They gave them up as part of the Budapest Memorandum on Security Assurances, and we know how Ukraine has fared since. Compare that to Russia, which has not given up their nukes. So in the background, there's that. And then we also have to talk about this desire from Kim Jong-un for a unified Korea. When you go to North Korea and you take any of these sort of chaperoned state-sanctioned tours, they give you all the propaganda about how any day now there's going to be reunification. North and South Korea are going to reunify and be one Korea. Being a nuclear power, maybe Kim Jong-un thinks, well, I'd better be able to coerce South Korea into reunification. I mean, it's completely delusional, right? South Korea has the raw materials and equipment to produce a nuclear weapon. They don't have one. But as nutty as Kim Jong-un might be, he probably realizes that you're not going to get reunification merely by having nuclear weapons. You're going to have to go to war with South Korea, a war they very well may lose. Maybe he thinks, I don't know, having some nukes could shift the balance on reunification.
Right. When you think about the North Korean people, there's, a certain amount of naivete there because obviously they've been brainwashed and isolated from the rest of the world. And you have to wonder how much of that extends to Kim Jong-un himself. Now, obviously, he's, more well-traveled, more enlightened than the general population there. But he's also been surrounded by yes men his whole life. And he's also, was born with a silver spoon. So how much of that naivete really extends to him?
I don't know. And that's the question. It's like we know that we have Trump and Kim Jong-un as total megalomaniacs. We know Trump's got plenty of yes people around him. I think in North Korea, you're right that it is yes men specifically. I genuinely don't know. And so that's what I'm trying to balance in thinking about what Kim Jong-un wants out of this. And, it's probably reasonable to think that if Kim Jong-un had nukes, in the form that he's researching them, that maybe it would deter outside intervention. And then the other thing is North Korea spends 25% of its GDP on the military. That's huge. It could stand to reason that Kim Jong-un thinks, hey, if we could get these nuclear weapons, we could not spend as much on the military and maybe move some of that money into other areas. I really don't know whether those dollars would be spent on something that would benefit the average North Korean. I'm skeptical of that, but certainly it might make some money available to something else in North Korea. Maybe they wouldn't have to have screenshots of Google on their computer screens. They could actually access google.com. That's a reference to a documentary about North Korea. But I think that this is all many of the factors that are playing into what's going on with North Korea. Some of them are completely rational and some of them are completely delusional, like potentially this goal of reunification with South Korea. I don't know, but what we do know, Pat, is that the escalation we've seen from Donald Trump is like nothing we've seen with any recent American president. And when you have a desperate president and one that is basically a 71-year-old man-child that goes on Twitter to brag about nuclear weapons, which we'll talk about later, he's not the guy I want to count on to be the sane, sober, and rational one, because he's not proven himself to be that.
You do have to wonder if this is a distraction for him from the failures of his presidency.
Yeah.
But the thing is, that could completely backfire, because if Republicans in Congress witness the escalation of tensions with the U.S. and North Korea under his watch, they may find the Russia story as an impetus for getting him out of office.
That's interesting. It could backfire. There are a number of ways in which this could backfire. And of course, we are already talking about, well, what kind of intervention might we see? Would that require an authorization to use military force? And the one issued, I don't know how many years ago to fight al-Qaeda is not going to cut it if you're looking for military action in North Korea. So all relevant questions, legal questions, geopolitical questions, pragmatic questions about the mental state of both our and their leader. That's what we're dealing with right now. And you can send me your thoughts about this on Twitter. I'm on Twitter at dpakman, and the show is on Twitter at David Pakman Show. Today's episode made possible by Tagadab, the hosting specialist. Tagadab offers a range of flexible hosting packages, including dedicated VPS and cloud server options. They also do custom server solutions and co-location services. Tagadab has a really user-friendly interface and excellent customer support team. Their expert hosting specialists also are their friendly support team, and they give customers full access to their knowledge and service, with over 70% of Tagadab's business coming from repeat orders and recommendations, and a Trustpilot review rating of 9.7 out of 10. You know that Tagadab takes their customer service very, very seriously. With a growing number of people interested in moving their businesses and projects to the cloud, Tagadab is offering you, as a David Pakman Show viewer or listener, a 20 British pound free credits, about 24 US dollars, to all new customers signing up to give you a chance to try their services. To take advantage of it, go to signup.tagadab.com/TDPS for more information on their cloud VPS and dedicated server features. Once again, signup.tagadab.com/TDPS. Use the discount code TDPS20.